This is episode number 262 of the Homeowners Show. Whether you're DIY or looking to hire, we're here to help you find the best information and options for you and your home. My name is Kevin Hackett, and here with me is Craig Williams.
Hello, and welcome to the Homeowners Show. We're so glad you could join us for another episode live from the studio. I'm going to press the button. Hang on one second.
All right.
Got it.
That's all done now.
Yeah. What's going on, man?
Well, you know, first of all, I got something like weird in my ears. Hold on just a minute.
Yes. Okay. You got to adjust the
thingy thing.
The thingy thing?
It's because we don't have the Rizzler with us.
Yep. He's not here to fix things for us.
That's right. Well,
he's slacking off and sleeping for school in the morning. That's what's going on.
Well, we don't allow that. But
it's 10 demerits.
I do have three very important things to discuss.
Oh, yeah?
Number one, where's your bobblehead now?
Oh, it's in the house. I just hadn't brought it in.
It is unnecessary at this
unnecessary?
point.
No, it's the whole point of the bobblehead is to annoy you.
Well, it doesn't annoy me anymore. Just they're irrelevant.
Okay. So your mood is based off whether or not your team is winning?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's because you're a loser.
Actually, not today, sucker. But I will say this. Number two.
How'd the Cowboys do today?
Oh, well, they were awful. But that's because they started Dak, so whatever. Okay, so...
Let me ask you this, because this is something I find interesting. College teams make sense to me.
Okay.
Because if you went to the school, you're probably going to support that team.
Yeah.
I don't understand being loyal to professional baseball teams or professional football teams or basketball teams.
Okay.
Because you don't live in Dallas.
No.
But that's your team.
Yeah.
Why?
For me, it's because it was my dad's team. I grew up just loving it and being we watched those teams growing up, and that's the reason. But
when they stink, why not just abandon ship and go cheer for somebody that's actually winning?
Do you know anything about me? I'm awfully loyal.
Well, no, I mean that's why I'm asking, because it's kind of a silly thing in my brain. In my brain, it's sure. They stink. You don't like what they're doing,
right?
Go find somebody else.
Yeah, it's just not me. I'm loyal to a fault when it comes to that.
But that's not a reason. You know what I mean? Just being loyal to a fault. I mean, okay, whatever. But I mean, you wouldn't do that with a restaurant.
No. No, that's true.
The restaurant was good, and now it sucks.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit here and eat this meal anyway.
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me.
Okay.
So it's not a criticism.
No, I'm fine with that.
I just don't understand it.
Yeah. It's probably why you don't like professional sports.
No, that's not why. No, that's actually not why I dislike professional sports for a whole other reason.
Okay. What is that reason?
Oh, all of the player strikes over the years.
Oh.
They lost me back in the early 90s.
Yeah, whenever it became position loyalty way more than it did team loyalty or anything like that. Look, we want more money and more money and more money and more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
get it.
Yeah, I'm just not interested anymore.
Yeah.
So
that's going to happen with college now too.
It might, and if it does, I'll probably just turn it off.
With the NIL, I mean, it's already starting.
Cool. And I'll take my time and my dollars, and I'll have way more free time than all y'all suckers.
That's true. That's true.
I don't miss it at all. Yeah. I enjoyed it back in the day. I was really into the Rockets back in the 90s when they had
when they were Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah, they were fun. I was Drexler and Olajuwon and even when Barkley was on the team. That was fun.
Yeah.
I remember all that stuff. It was fun. But
sure.
I don't miss having to waste my time just watching other guys run up and down the field.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't say that to take throw shade on anybody that does.
No, I get it.
If that's how you want to spend your time, that's how you spend your time.
Sure.
Just not interested.
Yeah.
But
number two. You ready for number two?
I'm ready for number two.
Second one is
I will be bringing the Bregman statue back in.
Okay, well, it won't annoy me any longer.
Yeah, and I seriously couldn't even tell you what position he plays.
It doesn't matter anyway. Okay. The second thing. Last night, yesterday was your birthday.
Yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And we had to get together for you. And my wife was here along with lots of people.
Right.
And she had a revelation last night. And that was that we've been doing this podcast for 5 years.
I remember that because someone was asking us about it, and they were like, "How long have you guys been doing this?" 5 years back in September, and she's like, from across the room, there is no way you guys have been doing this for 5 years.
That's right.
It's like, no, yeah, we've been doing it like every week for like 5 years.
Right. And she was like, I literally thought it was about a year, and I was like, what? 1 year?
Yeah.
Like, whenever you start thinking 5 years is equal to 1 year is whenever you know you're getting old. And I can safely say that because the second revelation was that she's never
ever
listened to a single episode.
Yeah. And I hope she felt immensely guilty about that.
Well, she did. And let me tell you why I know that is because we were driving home from church today, and she goes, "So, something I'm going to do this week is listen to a couple of your episodes." And I was like, "Oh, really? And why?"
Yeah.
She was like, "Well, now I feel a little bit horrible that you've been doing something for 5 years and I've never listened to it."
Do you think she feels like she was outwifed?
I strongly doubt it. She's like so not competitive. Me? I'm the competitive one. But like, no, like she was like, no, whatever. I'm gonna finally listen.
Yeah.
I was like, well, don't feel guilty about. I don't really care.
Yeah. You've gotta work hard to like out fan our wives.
That's so true, man. Like your wife's at least listened to like 5,
something like that.
But I told her, I was like, look, we're on episode like past 250. You know, there's only 52 weeks in a year.
Right.
So do the math.
Counting helps.
Yes. Yes.
So, but like, let's also be honest. Like, my wife is not listening because she likes the show. She usually tunes into like the first 15 minutes to make sure I'm not doing something embarrassing.
Sure. That's fair.
Which is why I wait to do the embarrassing things at the end of the show.
That's right. Till the end. But, man, it was fun, like, reminiscing just for a minute with some people that weren't familiar with, like, how the show started and all that kind of stuff, with, like, how random it all began.
Yeah.
At least it felt that way.
Well, yeah.
And,
well, I am random.
Well, I know. Anyway. All right, you ready for number 3?
I'm ready for number 3.
It is an extremely nerve-wracking and unsettling feeling whenever you drive home and there's a fire truck at your house.
There's a fire truck at your house last night?
This was Friday.
I thought you meant when you left last night.
No.
Okay.
No, this was Friday.
Okay.
So I had taken my dog to the vet. Time for her annual checkup. She's fine, by the way. And when I left, so those people that don't realize, like, it has been extremely dry here in Houston. So much so that we've had a fire ban, which frankly just doesn't happen all that often. But we had a fire ban, and so we couldn't do much. But we had a bunch of limbs that came down. I don't remember when it was, like maybe 3 months ago.
You talking about the windstorm?
A huge windstorm.
Yeah.
And we had a ton of limbs that came down, and so we piled them all up, and we were just like, well, a lot of them were still green. So it's like, well, we're going to have to sit it here for, a month or two before it's really going to burn well. And so, but then we couldn't burn it. So it's just been this huge pile. And anyway, my mother-in-law was like, finally, the burn ban. So this last week, we had like 3 days of really good rain.
Right.
And so they lifted the fire ban, and my mother-in-law was like, hey, do you think we can go ahead and start burning some of that wood? And I was like, yeah, I mean, there's no reason. We got a big fire pit, and, I'd be fine. And she said, okay, I think I'm going to do that. Well, when I left, she had started the fire, and it was burning in the fire pit as it should. When I come home, there's a fire truck at my house, and I'm like, what in the world has she done?
Oh, no.
Because I knew that there was a fire going in the back. My thought immediately went to someone called the fire department. Like, some yahoo over here is like, I see smoke, and called the fire department. And so I see 3 firemen walking down the drive as I'm pulling in, and I'm like, okay, that's exactly what happened. Like, someone just called the fire department. Well, I get there and I go, hey man, is everything okay? And he goes, yeah, burning some limbs back there, and the fire jumped. And I said, the fire jumped? He said, yeah, it jumped into the wood pile. I was like, all right. And he goes, they're putting it out back there. I was like, oh my goodness. So I drive back there, and they got an F550 back there,
right?
But it who knows how many gallons that thing has on it. And sure enough, like I went over there, and my mother-in-law was like, well, we got more burned than I expected we would. And I was like, yeah, it looks like you burned about half the pile. And they were spraying the tree. I was like, did you burn the tree too? And she was like, well, one of the limbs started burning. And I was like, oh my God, at least it didn't like move toward the house or anything like that. It wasn't super windy. But what happened, and this just like, I don't blame her at all. I probably would have done something very similar. And she was like, but it was completely my fault. And I was like, what do you mean it was your fault? Like, did you like take a limb out and put it over in the wood pile? Like what did you do?
Fire dancing.
Yeah, right. She said, well, like I was kind of trying to wind it down. And so everything was below, like there's like 3 stones on my fire pit. She said it was down like below the very first stone, and there was just like hardly anything left, and it was just like coals basically. And so I went and I took a shower. Got ready. I had somewhere I had to be, and I looked outside, and there were flames shooting out of the wood pile.
Oh no.
And I immediately called the fire department. She said they got here really fast. She said from the time I called to the time they showed up was probably 5 minutes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And the guy was super nice. I mean, he was like, look, honestly, it's just still too dry. He said, I know the fire ban's lifted, but it's still just too dry.
Right.
He said, it could have happened, literally one little spark could have flown out, and boom, there was. But the fact that she wasn't attending it and hadn't like putting water on it or anything, lesson for anybody out there, just make sure your fire's out before you walk away, period. Like oversaturate that thing, because like if you see any smoke, there's an old adage, right?
Yep.
If there's smoke, there's fire. Right?
I mean, I don't know if you remember, like half the back pasture burned one time.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yeah, there was. I mean, and we had like 4 fire trucks.
Yeah,
it was nasty.
I do remember that.
So, and like I wasn't even home. I didn't start the fire. Right. We're not going to talk about who did. I just remember I got a call from a neighbor who I didn't particularly enjoy.
Yeah.
Thankfully, he's moved on.
Yeah.
But I just remember him calling me, just like cursing me out, like your place is on fire. I was like,
sorry.
I'll be there as quick as I can.
Right.
It's like, what do you want me to do?
No, I mean, and that's one of the things about this though, is like it's completely helpless feeling. Yeah. Right. And thankfully we've got really great people that are firemen out there that it's like a public service at this point. I paid taxes. It didn't cost me anything. I didn't lose anything valuable. The tree's not going to die. Like everything's fine. But
we took them a batch of cookies though. Hot tip right there.
Oh, that is a good tip.
Yeah. I mean, because like you're right, it doesn't cost anything, but like those guys came out there and took care of stuff for you.
Yeah,
and it's like I ended up saying like, hey, what's the bill, man?
Right.
And he's like, no, he's like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
And I was like, can we bring you dinner?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, not really. So we baked him cookies and took them up there.
That's not a bad idea.
So
well, anyway, so those were my 3 things.
There you go.
Crazy day at the Hackett house. Like, I'm just really glad it wasn't windy that day or like something worse.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it could have been way worse.
Could have been way worse.
Just glad she's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually really concerned that she was like freaked out, and she said, I was a little freaked out, but she was pretty calm and cool. And she was kind of laughing by the time we got there, kind of joking about it. But
did she try and put it out herself?
Well, she definitely did get the hose, and we've got so for our little backyard area, we've got one of those little. So it's got the multiple heads on it, and she turned it on to the the highest power or whatever, and started like trying to put some water on it, but obviously it's not going to do anything. I mean, it probably bought a little bit of time, but no, nothing major. So, but she was fine. So anyway, how are you?
Good, man. We did I tell you about what we did yesterday before y'all came over? Like me and the boy.
No, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Did
I tell you about like when we got there?
No.
So
tell everybody what happened.
Well, so like my wife asked me what I wanted to do for my birthday.
Yeah.
And I was like, honestly, I want to saddle the horses and I want to go for a long ride. I think I'll go up to the brewery.
Yeah.
Because I knew they always have Oktoberfest on my birthday.
Yeah.
And so they were having Oktoberfest, and it's always like a big to-do out there. There weren't as many people this year because it was just still hot.
Oh, yeah.
But they had the Oompa band and everything was going. So me and my son, Gatchel, saddled the horses, and it's probably was that like a 4-mile ride?
Yeah, probably.
So 8 miles round trip.
Mm-hmm.
So we get there, and he's having a blast. I mean, he's 10.
Right.
But like riding a horse on the side of the road for him is freedom.
Sure.
It's like getting a car.
Yeah.
So he's just having a blast, and we get there, and Chris, the GM, he's super stoked to see us riding up. Like nobody's ever come up on horseback before. And so he sets us up, and we're just standing there talking, and all of a sudden, like all these little kids start gathering around us, and I'm like, oh, this is an unintended consequence.
Yes.
So like every little kid, and there's a bunch of little kids.
Oh yeah.
Like every little kid wants to come pet the horse.
Well, it's a really family friendly brewery.
Yeah,
really is.
I mean, like that's kind of their thing.
Right.
It's a family place to hang out.
Yeah.
So anyway, all these little kids start coming up to us wanting to pet the horse. What's the horse's name? Bah, 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 bah. So, a bunch of the little kids clear out, and my son is like, I'm standing there, talking to families and glad-handing people and just, letting them pet my horse.
Right.
And I didn't realize, like, behind me, like, my son's doing the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Except now there's, like, this gaggle of little girls.
Oh, yeah.
All around him.
He learned something yesterday.
And so, like, he's standing there, and I'm like, hey, buddy, you want me to go get you a root beer? And he goes, yeah.
Go on, Dad. You don't need to be here any longer, Daddy.
And I was like, you want anything to eat? He's like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, okay, bud. I'm going to go tie my horse up. Okay. So I tie my horse up. I go get something to drink. I get him something to drink, and I get some food. And I come back with his drink, and I'm like, hey, bud, here's your root beer. And he goes, just go put it on the table over there.
Oh, my gosh.
And, like, he's hot and tired.
Sure.
But, like, he has got these girls' attention.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, oh, this is not good. He is connecting dots I did not want him to connect.
This early.
Yeah. And I was
wow.
like, oh. So I posted it up yesterday, and I was like, my son learned a thing today that horses attract girls.
Yeah.
Lord help me.
Oh, goodness.
And because he's kind of girl crazy at a young age anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not good. This is not good.
Yeah.
He's going to manipulate this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As often as possible.
Yeah. And like today on the way home from church, he's like, hey, you think tomorrow when you get home from work, we could, just take a ride to the brewery? And I'm like, bud, it's closed on Mondays. And he's like, oh, really?
Yeah. He's like, surely some girls will show up if I get a horse.
And he was like, well, maybe we can just ride around the neighborhood. And I'm like, maybe we can. Maybe we can.
That's really good, man. That's really funny. That's good.
Yeah, he's never been so interested in the horses before.
Hey, I don't think I've ever told you my horse story from.
You gotta enunciate when you say that.
My horse. My good old horse story. Sorry about that.
It's either horror or something else terrible.
Exactly. So I was reffing this. This is the first year in 21 years I haven't officiated football.
Uh-huh.
Like it's something I've done for a long time. I started when I was in college, and while I was in college in the Abilene area, there's a bunch of these little bitty schools.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it was this consolidated school that probably had like 45 kids there total, right? They were playing this other small school. It was a little 6-man game.
6-man football is fun.
Oh, it's so much fun. Like some people don't like it because they're used to 11-man football, but man, 6-man football is so much fun.
Yeah.
And so I'm there. I mean, I think it's my second year officiating, and we're just about to do the coin toss. I mean, maybe a minute away from the coin toss. And it's kind of starting to, it's dusk, like the sun's starting to go down, and I see something off in the distance. I mean, we're kind of in a pasture as it is, right? And I see something, and I'm like, "What is that?" And we do the coin toss. We do the like the first series happens.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, there's these 2 horses up on the inline with these 2 people riding them, and they just put their arms up on the horse and they just watch the game, the entire game. They just sit there on the horse, and the final buzzer goes off. They turned around and they just walked away, and it is black as night.
Sure.
I mean, it is dark, 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 dark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how are they going to get home? Like, they don't have a flashlight on. Well, I don't know. I mean, I assume.
Sure.
Maybe they do. But in my brain, they have no flashlight. They have no idea where they're going. They just know it's that way. I'm sure they got home just fine.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like, I mean, horses, I mean, they can see, right?
I've actually ridden home in the dark.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
They know exactly where they're going.
They know where they're going.
Yeah. And
they're way more sure-footed than you are.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Anyway, it was it was a bizarre thing, and it's one of those kind of only in Texas types of things,
Yeah.
you know. Anyway, it was a fun story. So.
Yeah. I played at a church for a while that had 2 old guys that would still ride their horses to church every Sunday.
Man.
And like this was not that long ago.
You know, well, I mean, around here, there's a lot of cowboy churches. There's a really great cowboy church up the road.
Oh, yeah. They have like team ropings and stuff
yeah.
like pretty much every week.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure it's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. So, well, we've got really, I think we can just talk about this article. We've got a couple different ones, but like this one I think is rather intriguing, and it's the title of our show.
Yeah.
Because Kevin O'Leary made some comments. If you don't know who Kevin O'Leary is, he's star of Shark Tank. Mm-hmm. He's the guy that tells people their businesses are stupid or that they're a good idea, and then he tries to buy them and off auction through the other sharks.
Right.
They kind of bid for it.
Right.
And he's probably one of the more well-known characters on that show. I've never actually watched an episode, if I'm being honest.
I've watched like parts of episodes.
I've watched clips.
Yeah, I mean, because like Mark Cuban has always been super intriguing to me because, well, I mean, he's, you know, owns basketball franchise and like.
Is he on the Mavericks?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like whenever, again, going back to the beginning of the show, Dallas fan as far as like sports goes. I never really got into basketball, but I lived in Dallas back in the early 2000s when the Mavs were really, really good. And
is there more than one basketball team?
No.
It's just the Mavericks?
Yeah.
Does San Antonio have more than one?
No.
Just the Spurs?
Yep.
What am I thinking of?
I don't know. I mean, like, L.A.
has two?
Clippers and the Lakers. So,
okay.
like,
I mean, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. I mean, there's something like that. But anyway, so he's just this guy, like, shows up in, like, shorts and a T-shirt, and he's like, hey, what's up? I'm, like, a multi-millionaire, man. Like he just kind of, he's always been really intriguing to me. So, like, whenever I see stuff with him on Shark Tank, I'm like, okay, what is he going to do? Like, I feel like he's just going to kind of do something crazy. So, anyway.
He is do you know how he got his start?
You know what? I do, and I couldn't tell you at the moment.
Internet radio.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. He was like one of the first ones to do internet radio.
And he's just he's very eccentric, but more than that, he's like just a cool dude.
Seems like. I mean,
yeah.
I've heard him say really smart and intelligent things,
yeah.
and I've heard him say really moronic things.
Oh, I'm sure
as well. But I think that's. I mean, like when you're in the spotlight, that's just going to happen.
Sure.
But yeah, he's an intriguing dude. Yeah, and Kevin O'Leary is kind of an. I don't know how Kevin got his start. I mean,
neither.
He's just intelligent and wealthy. Yeah. I know that. But anyway,
sometimes all that matters.
Yeah. So he is, and this is something I've been talking about, and I don't know if I've talked about it a whole lot on the show. I think I've mentioned it a few times, but ever since COVID became a thing, one of the things I've been talking about is the commercial real estate market.
Yeah.
Because of everyone that went home, and then people were having to adjust, and we're going to turn the power off. We're going to they were adjusting to what was happening, and then it was like, okay, so who's going to come back?
Right.
And a lot of them have not come back still.
Right. And what's interesting about that is that so many of them, they see the value in going, oh, so I don't have to pay for all this overhead. But what's actually happening recently, I've heard multiple people that are going, yeah, they're really starting to rumble. Like they're really starting to talk about like we may have to start going back to the office because they're finding out that, yes, they're not paying a lot of overhead, but sometimes you're also not getting your work done.
Yeah.
And there's something about that office environment that is healthy.
Yeah.
The camaraderie that happens, the team aspect that happens that Zoom just can't quite do.
No. Yeah.
So anyway,
that won't ever be the same.
No, it is very interesting though how long it's taken, and if it will actually go back to what it was before.
Well, so here's some of the numbers.
Okay.
And this is a quote from O'Leary. He says, many of these office spaces are in subgrade markets, but even in cities like Boston, you find a lot of vacancies, up to 40% of buildings. Okay.
40%.
40%.
And these are like, how many rooms do you think are in these buildings? I mean, they've got to be massive, like 1,000 room type places, the offices and stuff.
Yeah. One of the ones I'd be interested to hear about is these shared workspaces. I'd be interested to hear how those places are doing. Because I would imagine they're down quite a bit as well.
Oh, yeah. I would think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you've got buildings that are sitting at a 40% unoccupancy rate on average,
man, that's got to be costing you so much money on a monthly basis.
Yes,
because most of these people don't own this stuff outright. They're still paying. I guess it's a mortgage. What is it on a commercial?
Yeah, you pay a mortgage on
mortgage.
It. Yeah.
So they're still paying a mortgage on.
Yeah, and so what he is saying right now is the situation is we have a 40% unoccupancy rate. We have a lot of regional banks whose ledger is tied up with commercial real estate. Okay, and he's saying regional banks carry about 40% of their portfolio is in commercial real estate.
Wow.
Yeah. So
is this basically saying that some of these smaller regional banks are going to be, they're already hurting?
They're already hurting.
Ugh.
Because these guys are starting to default on the commercial end of stuff. Here's the real problem. Okay, what a lot of people are saying, and he talks about this, and he did an interview, and where did he do the interview so people can look it up? Kudlow. He went on Kudlow. Anyway, here's the rub, is when you have these small regional banks whose portfolios are tied up with 40% of commercial real estate, what typically would happen is the market would do a correction, right? And you would either have to reappropriate that real estate to something else. The problem is it takes a lot of capital in order to move it over to, like, say you wanted to convert an office building into apartments or condos.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You're going to have to demo, tear out, and then rebuild. That takes a lot of money to do that.
Yep.
And in some cases, you're going to have to go through rezoning.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you want to convert it to storage, in some cases, you're going to have to go through a rezoning process,
right?
Which can be expensive and time consuming.
Yep.
And so again, while these properties are not earning money, you're actually having to spend more money. But like, say you want to unload it.
Right.
Okay. So you sell it to someone that has the idea to convert it to a condo or an apartment or a storage facility. They're going to have the same issue.
Right.
Where they're going to have to buy said property. Okay.
Then they're going to have to do the build out.
Then the build out. And it's going to take time in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
Well, most of these buildings are financed at like a 4% rate because they were bought more than 20. They've been around for 30 years.
Sure.
So they're operating on a mortgage that's giving them a 4% rate, whereas now, in order to finance them, you're looking at a 9 to 11% rate, which is a 3x increase on payments through interest.
Right.
Not to mention the price of real estate has gone up. And so you are looking at properties that are not financially feasible. And so they're trapped.
And at that point, so now let's go back to what I said just a moment ago, where there may be some companies that are like, you know what, let's get the band back together. Let's bring them back. And they're going, not at the same place we were.
No, yeah.
You can't afford it.
Yeah.
Because now these guys have had to make moves that have changed the trajectory of what they're actually doing, and they can't afford the same office anymore.
Right. And so if you have businesses that even want to move in, you're talking about rents going through the roof.
Yeah.
And businesses potentially looking at it going, well, maybe we do need to keep people at home again.
Right.
We'll just operate virtually.
Have to.
I mean, they're going to adjust one way or the other. They're not going to pay exorbitant amounts of money.
They can't
just to have a physical space.
They can't.
And they just can't. And then and it's going to cause. And so here's where our listeners need to be paying attention. If banks' portfolios are tied up with 40% commercial real estate, that other 60% is a large chunk residential real estate.
Right.
Which means that when your regional bank that you have your loan through goes under because their commercial portfolio tanks them,
right?
What do you think is going to happen to your loan?
Well, it'll have to get sold.
It'll get sold.
It'll have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only option.
But what happens if they don't? Like, what if they can't sell it? That's the thing. Is like everyone, like I'm with you. Like, what's going to happen? It's going to get sold. Well, by who? And on what conditions and under what terms and like how is that going to pan out for the homeowner?
I will say this, like every time I've bought a house, the loan gets sold at least once.
Sure.
And every time that happens, it's really no sweat off my back.
Sure.
Other than it's a little bit inconvenient because now I got to figure out, okay, where's
the money
this at
going
again?
now? Yeah.
Where do I have the actual, automatic payment set up, all that kind of stuff? But I don't know what the legalities around it. But I think that in order to have a loan sold like that, they have to keep your terms the same. So you as a residential person aren't having to pay extra if your loan gets sold. The people buying the loan are paying a chunk for it.
Yeah.
But they're making money off the interest at that point. So that it's fine with them to do that. But I just don't know. Like I don't know how many large corporations there are out there that can bulk sell this stuff to.
That I think that's the problem I'm trying to point at is you remember what happened in 2008?
Oh yeah.
Like part of what happened, the reason real estate prices crashed is because all of a sudden all of these loans went for sale.
Right.
And banks were not paying what they would normally pay. They were paying pennies on the dollar for them because these other guys had to unload them.
Right.
So you potentially have a situation where homeowners' loans are going to get sold again for pennies on the dollar because these regional banks have to get out from underneath them because they're insolvent.
Right.
And all of a sudden, people who bought homes during COVID that paid gobs of money for them are going to end up in situations where they're going to be upside down on a loan because they can't sell the house.
Right.
Because prices have tanked.
Right. Because
the commercial real estate market tanked.
Right.
Which caused the residential price to tank.
Right.
And now you've got a loan where you paid, $400,000 for the house, and now it's only worth $200,000. But you're still paying 4 to 6%.
Yeah.
That you. That's what you got in. Like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I did well. I mean, I got 4.5%. And I felt pretty good about that.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that are way more than that even. But
sure. Yeah.
Right. No, now, goodness, it's up at over 6 now, right now, I believe. So let me ask this question because my brain immediately goes to like fix it mode, right?
Sure.
So is the fix in your mind okay, you don't have tons of, maybe I'm wrong about this. From what I know, I don't think you have tons of like options whenever it comes to who owns your loan.
No.
So it's not like you can go to another bank and be like, hey, would you please buy my loan?
Right. But that won't make a difference.
Right. Because, the only thing that would make a difference, this is where my brain goes, is like, okay, you're talking about these smaller like regional types of banks.
Right.
What if you move over to a large corporation bank, like Bank of America or Chase or whoever, right? Like a larger bank. If you move your personal checking over because you're afraid that, who knows, like this regional bank that I love, I've been with them forever, right? They're mom and pop shop. I know that I'm going to get to see Paul whenever I walk into the bank, you know. Right. I love that personal feel, but now for one reason or the other, I've determined in my mind it's not safe to keep my money there. So I'm going to move, and I'm going to move all my stuff over to a large bank. You can't just be like, hey, large bank, I'm moving over. Would you please buy my loan? Mm-hmm. It's not the way that works.
Right.
So...
but that's called refinancing.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to get to. So now your option is go refinance your house at potentially
9 to 11%.
9 to 11%.
Yeah.
And you're paying closing cost, which could be $2,000 to $4,000 probably just for the closing. Mm-hmm. And now you're paying a higher interest rate on something you were paying, doubling the interest rate on now. So like... that's the crazy part, right?
Yeah.
Like, and look, obviously our goal right now is not to scare anybody. Like that's not the goal. I guess the goal would be like start asking some questions, right? Like start being informed of where your loan's at, what's going on with it, all of that, right?
I'm trying to see how. I was trying to look and see how old the average home loan is.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, if I'm guessing the average, most of them are 3-4 years. I'm guessing they're not very high. I mean, obviously you got people that they've had their loan for 15 or 20 years.
Right.
But a lot of people move often.
Yeah, so. No, they do. And I'm just curious. I mean, because even if they're, I mean, anything older than 2 at this point, is going to have, and this is something
they're going to have lower interest rates.
They're going to have lower interest rates, and they're not going to want to refinance it.
No, of course not. I would never. I mean, we were so fortunate. I felt so good about 4.5%, based on the fact that like a month later it was 5.5%.
Right.
So, and now it's way past that. I would never want to refinance my house right now.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason, there's 2 reasons you refinance. Either because you can get a better interest rate.
Right.
Or you're looking to pull cash out.
Right.
So I'm thinking...
And if they're 2 years or less, they're not wanting to pull cash out now. They can't.
But here's the problem, is if the average, let's just say the average home loan in the U.S. right now is 10 years old, which sure. I think that's probably a fair guess.
Okay. Sure.
I could be way off, but I'm just going to go with that guess.
Okay.
Let's just assume that that's true. If that's true, and people get in a hard way, okay, they're going to have to refinance in order to access the equity and the cash that they might need to survive. So they might get put into a position where they have to get stuck with a crap interest rate, just to survive, in order to get cash out.
Ugh.
So, I mean, because here's a number I do know, is that 70% of Americans don't have access to $1,000.
Oh, right.
Right?
Right.
So like, if the commercial market collapses, it's going to cause, what are businesses going to do? They're going to start with firing people. They're going to have a round of layoffs in order to, because they're going to have real estate that they can't unload.
Right.
And so they're going to have to pay for that. And in order to make the prices are going to go up and on rents and all this kind of stuff. When that starts happening, they're going to do rounds of layoffs. And so people are going to lose their jobs. And if the average home loan, again, I'm guessing.
I was looking too. It's hard to find.
It's hard to find. You start getting like the age of people when they buy houses.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a stupid statistic. No one cares.
Nobody cares about that.
But yeah, so like that's going to be a compounding problem. And so when 70% of people can't access $1,000, the only thing that they have access to is the equity in their property, if they even own that property.
Right.
So they'll panic.
Oh yeah.
And they'll pay that 9 to 11% in order just to get their cash. And they'll refinance out to another 30-year loan.
Man.
So, I mean,
that's a really crummy option.
It's a crummy option.
But
I'm thinking about we're getting close to being halfway done paying our house off.
Right.
So because we're on a 15-year note.
Right.
And I think we're on schedule to pay it off in 10 if we stay like we are right now.
Cool.
So which I think that means we've got like 7 years left if we do that.
Perfect.
Because we refinanced.
Right. Like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
The math checks out so far.
It's somewhere in there like that. Which, by the way, there's no penalty to paying your house off early.
No.
You have to ask. I mean, sometimes
most of the time it's not.
Most of the time it's not.
Right.
I forget where I was going with this.
I don't know. Something about how fast you were going to pay your house off and how good that was going to be for you.
That's what it was. That's what it was. So I'm 3 years into a 15-year note that I should have paid off in 10. So
right.
7 years I should be done. But like, let's say I got in hard times, right?
Pull money out. You have to.
I can access quite a bit of cash through the equity in my home.
Sure.
Now, refinancing is not the only way to do that.
No.
There are other ways.
Yes.
They're not necessarily the best ways to do that.
Right.
But you can do it without refinancing.
Right.
Let's say I had to refinance.
Okay.
I'm probably going to stick myself in a 30-year loan.
Well, sure.
Because if I'm strapped, I want my payments to be as low as possible. So I'm gonna come in and I'm probably gonna qualify for like a 9% loan because I've got pretty good credit.
It's laughable,
right?
I got really good credit.
9%.
9%. Yeah. Here you go. Congratulations.
Yeah. Red hot poker in my Kenny Popo.
No doubt.
Anyway, it's like that's really, other than having the cash,
there's no upside.
Like my payments probably aren't going to change all that much.
No, but except the fact that you got to keep paying them for a whole lot longer.
A whole lot longer.
Yeah.
I went from being close to done in 7 years to not being done for another 30. What the hell?
It's awful. Like, that's not okay.
And that's the direction we're heading.
That's where you're at.
So it's not looking pretty out there, folks.
Right. No.
So.
Well, it'll be real interesting. I mean, these guys like Kevin O'Leary, like they
he's salivating over this, man.
Oh yeah, I mean they're hoping stuff like this happens
for sure,
because
crashes create opportunity.
They do, and most people freak out, and that's when people buy that are smart. Yep.
Exactly.
So it's just a matter of figuring out the best way to do that. So I don't know.
Yeah. So, but I mean, just thinking through, like, here's what I would tell people is pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
Set yourself up to be as prepared as possible, to where not only can you survive this, but that you can actually be the kind of person that can come out looking good on the back end.
Yeah.
Because when there's I think it's Jamie Dimon who's like the CEO of Chase, JP Morgan Chase. Mm-hmm. And he has a philosophy called the Fortress strategy.
Okay.
You know what it is?
I don't.
Mountains of cash.
Yeah.
It's called Mountains of Cash because mountains of cash can survive anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's liquidity, it's availability, like it's... I mean, I don't know...
When people have to sell their properties for pennies on the dollar, it's good to have the pennies.
It is. It is.
So, but like, we know 70% don't.
No.
And it's probably less than 5% that have access to the kind of cash that can actually benefit from a crash.
Yeah, and I think the problem with all of that, especially where we're at right now in the state of the union, so to speak, and not only that, just the world, is that the inflation has risen to such a rate where we can't just stockpile cash. Like I got to have it to drive my vehicle. I got to have it to pay my electric bill. I got to have it to buy a gallon of milk or a carton of eggs. Like I've got to be able to feed my family. I got to be able to drive to work. Like I just don't have extra.
Right.
And when you don't have extra because inflation has risen to a point where your yearly raises, if you're even getting those, they can't keep up.
Yeah.
You know? And so I feel for all of us as we're trying to navigate the crazy waters of, because unfortunately you got to have money to live. And, you know, I wonder, like this, it just makes me wonder at what point are we going to see fewer and fewer people buying homes? And are we going to
We're already seeing it.
I know,
we're
but
already
like,
seeing it.
How long is it going to be before it's like so noticeable that people go, oh, you know?
The one redeeming thing that I think we have going for us right now is I think in a very short amount of time, we're going to have a surplus of inventory.
Well, yeah, I think that's going to be the only option.
It's going to screw builders.
Yeah. Well, of course. Especially those that are out here building thousands and thousands at a time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, but like I do think within like O'Leary says, like we're probably not going to see the effects of this for another 36 months. I think he's probably right about that. And I think you know come 2025, we're going to see a surplus in inventory like we've never seen before, because building got ramped up like crazy during COVID.
Well, yeah.
And a lot of them were just waiting for material price to go down. And as soon as it did, man, they just hit the ground running.
Yep.
And have been and like mostly apartments. A lot of apartment construction has been going on.
Which they're going to come out looking like geniuses through this whole thing.
The apartment builders?
Yeah.
Probably.
Because they're going to be the ones that are benefiting from people having to get out of their home and like, look, I can't buy another home right now, so I'm just going to live in an apartment.
Well, and like what's happening right now is apartment rental rates are about the same.
They're so high
as renting a home.
Yeah, but I don't have the extra concern about what if a water heater breaks or what if you know, what happens.
I mean, it has its benefits, but they may come looking out rosy. You may be 100% right. I don't know. I'm just saying. I know. I just know that there's going to be a surplus in inventory.
Yeah.
I mean, like just numbers wise, there's going to be.
Well, when rates do what they're doing and prices do what they're doing, inflation continues to go up. Jobs are what they are, right? Like, and if we start seeing some of this stuff happen, where these guys that own businesses and stuff, they're gonna have to start laying people off. If that winds up all of the cards align to go, okay, we may not see like a recession like we had in the Depression type of thing going on, and we may not see a crash like we did in 2008 again. Well, we might, but I don't know that we will. But it's gonna hurt, and it's gonna be very, very felt. And there's I think what's gonna happen is if we're not prepared, if there's people not listening to our show today, I think there's going to be a lot of people that wind up going, I never saw this coming.
I'll make a bold prediction for the show. All
right.
I actually think it could be worse than 2008.
Okay.
Because at least in 2008, we know what happened. It was crap loans being sold to unqualified buyers.
They were giving people $500,000 loans that couldn't afford a $200,000 loan.
That's not happening now.
No, for sure.
That's not happening now. Like, we have qualified buyers and behind these loans. What's happening is I mean, whether or not you think what the government did during COVID or not was a good or a bad thing is insignificant. They dillied in the market in a way that is unrecoverable at this point to go back to normal. Normal's not coming back.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you, but like every once in a while, I live in Montgomery County. Like that's where we live. Super conservative.
Yeah.
The probably of the counties in Texas the most conservative.
It is the most conservative county in Texas.
Just keep that in mind.
Uh-huh.
But I see stuff all the time. It's like, remember what gas price was on April 1st, 2020 or whatever? It's like, it was $1.35.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now we're looking at prices that are $2 more than that.
Mm-hmm.
3 times more. And people in California are like, $3.50 for gas. I wish. Because my parents were just there. It's almost $6 a gallon.
I don't doubt it.
And so it's just, it's crazy. And so, I think that whenever we see that, I just don't know. It's been there for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know, even if a new president comes in, if some of these things are going to go down like they did.
I don't think they will.
I don't think they can. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with this new election that comes up. But even still,
I think some things are going to change. For sure.
They will. They will change.
But I don't think it's going to make people go back to a brick and mortar office building.
No. I don't think so either.
And that's what's driving this. Mm-hmm. So now, maybe you can pass some legislation that would change. I don't know, but I can't imagine someone going, you know what? I'm tired of being at home.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the office.
No, everybody, look, that's the thing is like almost there are those crazy extreme situations where you have the most extroverted person in the world is like, I hate being at home.
Right.
But even then, they've got a spouse or some kids that are going, man, Daddy, I sure do really like you being around. Yeah. And so that winds up going, okay, I can probably do this.
Well, and they've filled their social calendar with other things because everything else is open back up.
Right.
They can go to the bar. They can go to church. They can go to the skating rink. Mm-hmm. They can go to the bowling alley.
And they can work from those places too.
Yes.
And oh, by the way, they bought that house that had the office in it.
Yep.
And so they're happy because now I got all my stuff here.
Yeah.
I got my own dedicated space, and we got a friend who was here at your birthday party last night. Jared, he's been on our show before multiple times, and like he built a new barn at his house, and in there he built his own.
It's the work bunker.
He's got his own.
And it's pretty sweet.
It's pretty sweet, and he's like, I love it out here.
Yeah.
And so like if he had to wind up going back to an office, I guarantee he'd be like, what in the world? Like, I built this whole place.
Yeah.
Like, it's what I wanted. I'm happy here. Like, why?
Can you imagine the proposition from your workplace? Like, listen, Jared, what we'd like to do is offer you less freedom.
Right.
Okay. Less time with your family. But we don't want to change your pay.
Right.
And we're probably going to take away some benefits because we've been paying for the internet at your home.
Yeah.
We've been, we provided that computer there for you.
Right.
We're not going to do that anymore.
No.
So
you'll just use the one at the office.
Just come on back to the office.
Right.
It's like, no.
Spend your gas dollars, spend your energy.
Yeah.
Spend your time.
Businesses aren't stupid.
No.
They know that they don't have a value proposition on this.
No.
It's not. Now, everyone cheered when Elon Musk was like, hey, all Twitter employees come back to the office.
Right.
And then they all moaned and cried and we were like, ha ha, but come on.
Right.
Now, I also think it was, he also pointed out, it's like, look, we can operate this company with a third of the employees.
And he did.
And so it's like, if you want to keep your job, come to the office.
Right.
Now that is a value proposition.
Yeah.
That's worth taking a peek at.
It is.
It's like, oh, I'll lose my job.
Right.
That's a different story.
That's different than taking a pay cut of internet price. Yeah.
So anyway, it's an interesting topic, man. We've had a lot of people join in on this one. So I hopefully it was interesting and helpful and just, made you aware of some stuff that was going on in the market. Right. You got anything else?
No, we're not experts in any of this. All we're doing is giving you information, right?
Yeah.
So we'll link up the article in the show notes so you can go read it for yourself if you like. But yeah, I think that's about it. Let's wrap it up. Yeah, thanks for everybody tuning in. And if you're live, thanks for joining us live. Go check out our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
We're actually a lot more active over there recently. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to our Facebook, and go leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It would be fantastic. Thanks for everybody listening. We hope you have a great week. Until next time, we'll see you later.
See ya.
I had a weird, like the entire time I had a static in my ears. The
Really?
entire time. I knew that it wasn't happening on your end because you would have said something.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because of how it was plugged in.
Could have just been a loose connection.